Hello everybody, this is another Pass the Baton interview with the Centre for Technology Enhanced Learning, CTEL at Lancaster University. Pass the Baton is an initiative where alumni and doctoral researchers at the centre interview each other. The interviewee then becomes the interviewer and so on, hence the name Pass the Baton. There are a few batons going around as we speak at the end of 2021, and they're heading in different directions actually, so that's great news. Today I'm lucky to be chatting with Cvetanka Walter, and Cvetanka is a fellow alumni member of CTEL, and Cvetanka's a digital learning consultant based in Germany. Cvetanka's joining us on audio today. I'll just explain the format, Cvetanka, before we start chatting. So in these conversations, the interviewer, and today that's me, picks somebody from the CTEL alumni or doctoral research community who they've always wanted to ask a few questions about TEL. The intended audience includes people thinking about the TEL programme, people currently on the programme, and perhaps people who've completed but for one reason or another aren't members of the centre yet. If that does describe you, please do get in touch so that we can keep you all informed. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, just click subscribe at the top right, just above the video, and you'll be notified when we upload new content. We've planned for around a 20-minute format, so Cvetanka and I will say hello now and then we'll get going. So I'm Phil Moffitt, I'm a teaching focused lecturer at the Royal School of Military Engineering here in Kent in the UK, and I'm one of the alumni members of the centre. I was in Cohort 8 of the TEL programme. I'm interested in technology and expansive learning, particularly for engineers and facilities managers, people in critical national infrastructure, where people often have a need for learning which is only identified at the time and point of need. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Cvetanka?
Hello everyone, my name is Cvetanka. I am from Bulgaria. I got my master's degree in Germany in intercultural communication and European studies, and some years later I was so lucky to find TEL, the PhD program at Lancaster University, and became a student there in 2013. So I was in cohort 6, and since then I have been studying and learning and researching online learning and teaching, and it has never been boring. There are so many new things to try out, to evaluate, and to talk about.
Well, that's great, thanks for sharing that. You've had some fascinating experiences. In all that time, I suppose, if I just start asking you a couple of questions, in all that time, and I suppose more specifically since you finished your PhD, can you tell us what technology enhanced learning has come to mean to you? Perhaps how the PhD programme has made any differences to your conceptions of technology enhanced learning, how you're getting on and what you get up to and so on. Is that okay?
Yes. I actually graduated last year, so it took a bit longer than expected. And on my journey at Lancaster University, I did change my perspective on TEL, in the sense that when I came to the university, I was expecting to get answers and kind of solutions, and to learn things which, you know, when you learn them, then you can use them and they work. And from the very beginning, I found out that actually there are more questions than answers. And even now, about 10 years later, it feels like every day there are more and more questions coming than more answers, because on the one hand, technology is changing so rapidly. On the other hand, our attitude and use of technology is also changing extremely. So what I miss is kind of the time to really reflect on the use of technology. And I adopted a more critical point of view when dealing with technology. And what is important for me in my work is always to ask myself, is this a meaningful tool? How does it really enhance? I really like the definition of technology enhanced learning, because I think that it makes sense to apply technology in education when it really adds value to face-to-face learning and teaching. What I'm missing in TEL is actually the aspect of teaching, because it seems that we are so much concentrated on learning, but there's also this teaching aspect. So I would perhaps say technology enhanced education in order to include the aspect of the teaching, because the role of the teacher has been also constantly changing, and it is related to and influences the process of learning.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I know that there are a few papers out there on Kirkwood and Price rings a bell where they've kind of tried to unpack that whole technology enhanced learning sort of, I suppose, construction. I know Don Passio's, Brett Bly's got a couple of things out there discussing it. In your own field then, in intercultural communication, does technology enhanced learning tend to be differentiated from related things like e-learning, CSCL and so on? I know you brought up the notion of teaching, or do those things all kind of overlap and mix around a bit? Well, the only reason I ask, in my field we tend to have to explain what we mean by technology enhanced learning in that particular context. I think that's kind of positive, because it mitigates a lot of deterministic assumptions, this notion of, well, you'll have to use them, we've bought them now, that kind of thing goes on a lot. But I suppose we also have to describe it on a case-by-case basis, because a lot of the technologies we use in TEL are associated with the physical rather than the digital, and a lot of people assume that technology enhanced learning is going to be, solely digital, but engines, pumps, water treatment plants, they're technologies, and if they're enhancing learning, then to me it's technology enhanced learning. Is that different for you?
Well, I think that it helps even more to connect people from different places. So, for instance, I'm teaching a course in intercultural communication and business ethics this semester, and it's completely online, and I have really students from all over the world, and it's amazing just to sit with people who are so far away in one space online. And one thing we were also discussing was the ethics of technology. So I think that this kind of aspects, or how we communicate when we don't have when we can't see face expressions, or when body language is missing, or what does speaking or taking the turn and interrupting others mean. I think due to the topic we are discussing, we are somehow more sensitive and more open to discuss such issues as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of talk of ethics, and a lot of these issues are unpacked during the programme. If I could take you back to a time when you were on the doctoral programme, unlike a lot of people, you were busy juggling work and a lot of other commitments. What do you remember most about the doctoral programme, Cvetanka?
There are two things. The first thing are the residentials. Okay. They were really the highlight. They were so powerful experiences. They were so thought-provoking sessions and discussions there, and impulses, and unbelievable just to meet so many people, again from all over the world, who are interested in the same topic, to see that they struggle with the same issues or similar ones. And we had a very, very friendly cohort that we even organized a third residential, because there are 2 compulsory residentials, but we wanted to meet again in Lancaster, and the third year we organized the third residential where only about 10 people were present, but nevertheless it was so nice to exchange ideas again and to talk on the projects which we were starting to develop for the thesis and for part 2. And the second thing is the library. Not only the library there at university, which is so nice. I was just spending hours in the library, moving from one space to the other, because I've never seen these really collaborative spaces in the library. Then learning spaces, reading spaces, discussion spaces. It was really amazing. And the second part, having this online access to every article and book I needed. Yeah. And if I couldn't find one, then I was just sending an email to the library staff, and 2 days later they were saying, yes, you have it in 5 days or so. That was so amazing. That was really amazing for me and extremely helpful for my research and for my studies.
Yeah, that's great. I suppose as a segue, really, we might already know the answer, but or we might be able to guess. But just in case there's anything different, is there anything that you'd particularly like to pass on to people who are considering the programme or who have just started, or to people who are perhaps currently in the position of moving into their own doctoral research phase? Is there anything you'd like to pass on to anybody?
I would encourage everyone to take this adventure and this journey. I think that it will be good for people to know from the beginning that it may take longer than the 4 years, because I remember that I started with the idea, 4 years, that's so long, perhaps I can finish even earlier, and then life happens. So it took me 7 years in the end, and I could finish because of the support I got from my supervisor and from the academic staff. And yes, I think that everyone who wants to join an open-minded academic community will find this at the Lancaster in our department. And if you start a program and go to Lancaster, I would also suggest stay for a weekend there and make a trip to the Lake District. It's so wonderful, and I wouldn't have seen so many beautiful places in the UK if it weren't our program.
That's good. That's a lovely bit of advice. Great stuff. So before I ask this next question, I ought to explain to people that you and I haven't physically met, but we have met at a fair few online events, the centre termly meetings, other events, things like the meet and eat events, the show and tell. And to me, you always seem ready to add value and to help others and to share your experiences in a very, very valuable way. But just from your own perspective, I suppose, how do those CTEL activities help you personally in your own research and your own work and learning?
Well, you are right. We have only met online yet. I joined the center after graduating, so I am a young member, so to say, and the benefits I have from this membership is that I can stay in touch with the professors, the lecturers, that I can meet new students there. And what is extremely valuable is to take part in discussions on TEL-related topics. And I found those discussions always very valuable because everyone can speak up and can share their opinion. And it's a very friendly and welcoming atmosphere. And there is also the chance to publish in the journal. What I'm expecting in the future is to find the partners and to work on common projects together.
Yeah, oh, that's great then. So you are getting something out of it as well as adding value for everybody else. That's good. I mean, it's a bit of a self-indulgent question on the back of your answer there. But the reason I'd like to ask is that your experiences are clearly diverse. In terms of intercultural communication, perhaps work and learning more generally, is there anything that you think we're not talking about enough with regard to technology enhanced learning? I know earlier you mentioned the teaching as well as the learning, but is there anything else that you think we're not talking about enough?
I would say that for me, because of my personal interest, what is missing is more time for reflection and reflection on our learning experiences. Because at the moment, as an educator, I see my role changing almost every day.
Yeah.
And in this sense, I see myself also as a learner. But the expectation to work, to concentrate on the content, on assessment, and so on, doesn't really leave enough space and enough time to reflect together with the students on our common learning experience, but also on the idea how to support students to be more autonomous and more responsible for their own personal learning journeys.
Yeah.
Because, we're expecting that when we tell students what a flipped classroom is, and we believe that it is good, that they will do the work. Why not? They have the reading, then they come to class and discuss. But theory is not praxis. They come to class and they want to listen to a lecture. And they start engaging in a discussion, but if they are not prepared, if they haven't read the materials, engaged with the videos and so on, you can't really have a discussion. So I think that it's very important to practice and to talk with students that they are expected to change their roles as well, that they should take more responsibility for their learning, that they should come prepared in order to get something from these valuable moments of being together with others and with their tutor or lecturer. And my impression is that there is a need for time and conversations in order for this to happen, and that we really move to that level and get the advantages which we know from theory and from research.
Yeah, I was reading a paper yesterday along the same lines. I think it was Neil Selwyn. Actually, there was a co-authored paper for UNESCO where they described a lot of conceptions as being countered by a perspective of non-stupid optimism, as they called it, towards non-stupid optimism. And I thought that kind of encapsulates a lot of stuff that's certainly going around my field at the minute. That's brilliant. That's very insightful. Thanks. So believe it or not, we're just about to nudge against 20 minutes. It's gone really quickly and really enjoyably for me. We'll have to wind things up, which is a great shame, but we've learned a lot from you, so thanks very much. The last question now, when it comes to your own interview, what characteristics are you going to look for from the people you interview? It's probably not that wise to ask you who you'll interview unless you definitely know, but feel free, if you do already know, to name them. Otherwise, what kind of characteristics will you be thinking about when you look to somebody to interview?
I do have someone.
All right.
And I'm really happy that he agreed to be interviewed. And I think that no matter whom from my cohort I would pick up, they would have to say something valuable and interesting. But I picked up Vjekoslav Hlede, we called him Vjeko, because he was the person who got me acquainted with Google Docs.
All right.
And this was about 8 years ago, so it was something new. And he was also using a lot of pictures in his post when we were discussing. So this was another way to make me think about the questions we were discussing. And yes, that's how I remember him very vividly. And I think that he will have a lot of interesting stuff to tell.
Oh, that's great. Well, I hope you enjoy that as much as I've enjoyed this. Thanks very much for everything, Cvetanka. It's been great speaking with you, and I wish you well for your future TEL endeavours. I'll pass the baton over to you now for when you conduct your interview, and I'll say thanks very much for everything and take care. Cheerio.
Thank you, Phil. Bye.
Bye.